Andy, we're at what, 7:02? Trying to follow my directions from Anna. Okay. Let's get kicked off here. Let me pull the agenda up. Okay, minutes from the prior meeting of July 27th. Does anyone need a minute to go over those? Or do we have a motion to approve them?
I think Andy sent them out a little while ago. Should have received them in your email.
Do you guys just want to take a few minutes to review?
I missed the July meeting because I had internet issues, so I can't comment, unfortunately.
Yeah, just taking a look here. Yep, everything looks good from what I could see.
Excellent. Jim, do you want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Sure, motion to approve.
Okay, seconded. And why don't we do a roll call? Casey Atkins, yes. Jen Lutz, how do you vote?
Yes, although I wasn't there the whole meeting, but.
Okay, you can just abstain, I think, if you want.
Okay, abstain. Yeah, thanks.
Jim Howard, yes.
Great.
Let me just grab all these things here. Apologies. Okay. Anna, I realize I messed up and we didn't do a roll call at the beginning. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, let's do that now.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call and mention that you're present, or how you're present, virtual or in person. Since we do not have an in-person component, everyone's virtual. So I will go around and call Casey Atkins, present and virtual. Jim Howard.
Jim Howard, present and virtual.
Jen Lutz.
Present and virtual.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, so with Matt on, why don't we hop right into long-range plan?
Hey, Matt. So everybody in your emails received the notice that we received from the select board. We're going to do a presentation on our progress related to the town's long-range plan, Envision Concord. That meeting will be on November 15th, and it'll be a really nice opportunity for a bunch of different departments and commissions to present to the select board on progress. And Matt, since we have the luxury of having you here, if you could just give us a quick summary of what the select board is hoping for in the discussion that night. And I did send out a document to folks that spelled out all of the goals and big ideas that are related to the recreation department. And we'll talk about that after we hear a little bit from Matt.
Okay. How many did you come up with, Anna?
Oh, I'd have to pull it back up. There was less than a dozen. Let's see.
Anna, can I take a pause? Just somebody joined by phone. And we do need to know if this is a recreation member or a member of the public.
You'll have to unmute yourself, I think.
We'll do the ask to unmute button.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, just a member of the public. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, there's more than I remembered here. There's about 15 different initiatives that have the Recreation Department or Commission listed next to them.
Okay, great. And so the Envision Concord plan, if you're not familiar with it, was completed in 2018 with the idea of identifying the longer term goals across the town's departments, committees, boards, et cetera, that really should be achieved by, we hope, 2030. And we do these long range plans periodically, typically every 10 years or so. So we're a couple of years into it now, and it's always helpful, I think, to draw attention back to, well, what did we all decide? Because we actually worked pretty hard and spent money developing this plan. And as you look at it, you can see it's pretty comprehensive. While, of course, goals do evolve over time, it's very likely that those sort of big ticket items, are still something that we should keep in mind. So this, we hope, will give us a sense of what progress we've made, what big gaps we still have left, and then get people focused on how can they contribute to getting those closed. The other thing at this stage is we're trying to understand if new things have shown up, what they are, and then how we can kind of fold them in going forward. So that's what's there. And, so we tried, the biggest problem with an exercise like this is we have, 30 bodies that are all looking at this and all capturing this info. So at first we just had a sort of a free form, and that would have just created a nightmare for anybody trying to pull this together. So hopefully this new spreadsheet approach will give us a chance to collate everything and see what it looks like.
And Matt,
hopefully
that
that
night is the select board looking for presentations still that night, or is it going to be we send in this document with our info and you all discuss and we're there?
I think what we hope to do is, to collect everything, maybe share in advance this sort of collected output. And then I think that everybody is invited. We'll probably have a representative or two from different groups and, be able to maybe have some discussion, some commentary, maybe not just at the individual task level, but maybe more at the kind of strategic, hey, here's where we're focusing, here's where we see, stuff missing, here's where things have changed. Yeah.
Great. Okay. And proudly looking at the initiatives that the Recreation Department's name or the Recreation Commission's name was tagged to, we have made some good progress on a lot of these.
That's
pieces,
good.
just a few years in, which is reassuring and promising. Some of the big pieces, that I'm noticing that we still need to work on in collaboration with others is the economic vitality piece, and where recreation now falls into that. So those are the areas that I was seeing. I didn't have, much feedback yet, but in terms of the open space and natural resource big ideas, we've made some really great progress. So it'll be exciting. It was a good exercise to have to capture it all this way. So I do appreciate it. And, it kind of makes you recognize and appreciate too the collaboration with other departments that day in and day out we all have. And again, you might not realize that we're all working towards a lot of the same goals. And I think this will be a good way for the town and residents to see, that activity.
Okay.
So does anyone have any questions for Matt? Matt, you have to take off early tonight, right?
I'm supposed to attend another meeting. I'm double booked. Yeah.
Great.
That's starting at 7:30.
Okay. So I definitely will be there virtually or in person, whatever the select board wants for that night. And if there's any rec commission members that are available, to tune in and be there for support as well. Again, the meeting right now is scheduled for Monday, November 15th at 6:30 p.m.
Yeah, I expect it will stay with that date.
Okay, great.
The content may change, but the date will stay the same, I think.
We're flexible. We'll roll.
I
with
mean,
it.
so for example, the select board itself is listed on so many different items that we're going to actually focus like on our top 10 and, that kind of thing, because it's just too many. And we also are kind of interlocked with so many other committees. We're typically one aspect of all the different activities going on. So
Right.
we'll see if that works.
And the results of the discussion, Matt, is it really just an exercise for brainstorming and recognition, or does the select board, envision some charges coming out of this of let's get moving in these
Well,
areas?
I do think, first of all, we're just hoping that by going through this exercise, you go, oh yeah, we should work on that,
I did.
So hopefully it'll be in some sense a self-correcting kind of thing. But then, yeah, we may just uncover things here. Sometimes you find, multiple groups are working on the same thing, or their work's overlapping, or nobody's working on something when everybody thought someone else was. That's the kind of thing we're trying to find.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate the
Sure.
feedback and the heads up on what to expect.
Appreciate
So
the
again,
effort.
everybody, if you'll take a peek at that chart. I'm working with a couple of other folks to recall some dates and different projects, but if there's anything that you see or you're thinking of that, is related to the actions we've taken based on these big ideas, certainly, give me a call or shoot me an email. And if you think you might be able to attend that night to support or help answer questions, also just shoot me an email. No requirement, but if you're interested in doing so, I welcome you to come.
Anna, it may be helpful to do just a very quick 5-minute run through of what you have on that sheet for the rec commission, because I think there are some things in here that are linked to the recreation commission, but maybe for those who are newer, or those of us who have been on there, rec sort of touches a lot of different areas. And, for example, like the visitor center is something that came in a few years ago and has sort of shifted around and whatnot. So very high level, you don't need to get into the nitty gritty details, but I think helping us sort of understand what you've got on here, and then it can help inform anyone who's able to attend that meeting.
Sure. So for those of you that haven't had a chance to really poke through the Envision document, like Matt said, it's really chock full of a lot of great information and a lot of great charges and initiatives. The ones specifically that are tied to recreation are also listed next to most typically at least 4 or 5 other departments or groups. So it's a super collaborative initiative. In terms of commission specific initiatives, at quick glance, I don't remember which one it was, but there was only one charge that listed the Recreation Commission specifically, and it was to have a representative on a committee that is created by Natural Resources to help better educate people on open space and the assets and value of open space and recreation. I've been in touch with Delia Kay, Natural Resources Director, and they too are, combing through this and looking at all the different pieces. There is not a specific committee yet where a Recreation Commission member is going to be solicited. Perhaps that's something they will be working on. We'll hear at that November meeting. I think they have their discussion tomorrow night on this chart. So that's the only one that specifically lists the Recreation Commission. And then, very directly, just by the charges that you all have on being on our board, you're certainly interconnected to everything else. So you'll see a lot of the initiatives related to Big Idea 4.2, which is focused on economic vitality, looks at renewing the village centers and improving upon a lot of different aspects that would help economic vitality and tourism. So the interconnected pathways between downtown to the parks, to the train, things like that. The social hubs, they're called, and how could recreation work with economic vitality and planning and public works, you know, to help complete those sorts of goals. So it looks at those pieces quite a bit. It also, under economic vitality, encourages building on the enhanced quality of life in Concord and supporting the strong commercial businesses downtown. Again, recreation is listed there. So that could be things like, you know, how we could support with special events that bring tourism downtown into those sorts of areas. We know that we're good at doing that in Concord Center, but we know we have areas to improve on in West Concord, for instance. And, you know, how can we work with the West Concord Advisory Committee and the cultural district committees and things like that to do better? And, you know, recreation has a lot of resources and abilities to help facilitate those sorts of events. So it looks at those sorts of pieces. It looks at, let's see, making sure that residents understand the value of the conservation lands and the natural resources, value of protecting the wildlife and the species and the fisheries, all those sorts of things. And again, how that could relate to economic vitality. So there's a lot to do still in the economic vitality realm. As you know, Beth Williams, the Visitor Center and Tourism Manager, recently was shifted over to the planning department, which makes a lot of sense. So we'll be continuing to work really closely with planning and Beth and Marcia and the crew over there to incorporate, you know, what we can do. I'm actually meeting with them next week to start talking about some grants and different events that we could be collaborating on. So that's the economic vitality big ideas. And then the open space and natural resources, again, some of them are quite global and then others are more specific. So they talk about, there's a couple of pieces looking into a dog park, looking into making the recreation department parks and recreation and not just recreation, ensuring that all residents understand the value of open space and the town's amenities. And again, that's the one where the Recreation Commission at some point might be asked to join in to a larger discussion with other committee members, you know, on how we can better educate folks. It goes into enhancing the connections and the access to some of those different resources, like I mentioned, so the pathways and the accessibility throughout the parks. And we have done a lot of work on those pieces in collaboration with facilities and public works at all of our parks, Emerson Park and Rideout Park specifically. It also speaks to making sure that pieces are accessible. So, you know, Emerson Park right now, we're pouring an accessible surface in the playground. So people that use wheelchairs or strollers or anything like that, people can access the playground. We're adding accessible park pathways, fixing all the curb cuts that were a bit of a mess, things like that. So there are some huge initiatives that have been taken since this document was created in collaboration with other departments. And I speak to some of those specifics in the chart. Also, of course, looking at some of the amenities that we can add to the parks, whether it be pavilions or water fountains or bike racks, things of that nature. And again, just making sure that while we're all planning these renovations and adjustments to our spaces, that we're considering these pieces. And we've done a really good job so far. Again, at Emerson Park and Rideout Park specifically, adding some of those amenities. So we have the pavilion at Rideout that was installed in 2017. We dramatically increased parking at Rideout, including handicap accessible parking from about 29 spots total in the lot to over 50. We're installing water bottle filling stations at Emerson Park. We've installed the outdoor fitness circuit, the walking paths. So there's been a lot of progress that we should be proud of. And the Rec Commission has been there the whole way in helping to make these decisions and fund these projects and such.
And I think that was a terrific overview. And I think what's helpful too is the exercise that we're going through as a commission, sort of looking at those recreational assets and seeking funding through CPC for a consultant that can help us sort of evaluate those assets. Seems like it will go, hand in hand with some of the work of Envision Concord to further those efforts, especially on goals 9, 10, 1, and 4 as well. So thanks, Anna, that was helpful. Thank you, Matt. Anything else you want to add, Matt? I know that you have
On
about
a short
7 minutes
fuse,
left.
yeah. No, I think Anna's got the right thing. I'm almost a little concerned that her response is going to be too comprehensive. What I think we're really looking for almost bullet points at this level. Certainly you may have more detailed action plans behind them, but we're going to try to summarize as much as we can.
Well, I will over provide and then you all can,
And we'll
pick and
under
choose.
deliver.
Yeah, exactly. I like to be thorough.
Yeah,
Thank you for the guidance, Matt. I appreciate it.
sure.
Okay.
Any questions from any rec commission members on that? Do you guys know the Envision Concord? I think Anna sent a link to it previously. Jen, do you read it during some of your downtime with?
I was able to, yeah, I have to look at it in more detail, certainly, but this overview that Anna provided was very helpful. Thank you. Seems like a very good initiative.
Absolutely. Okay, shall we move on to strategic planning updates? Not to be confused with Envision Concord, but our own strategic planning and review of recreation assets. And unfortunately, we don't have Pete or Paul with us, but Anna, do you have an update to share with us from them?
Yeah, so Peter and Paul have graciously committed some extra time to, digging into the strategic planning process and a scope of work. We've met 2 times since our last meeting and have exchanged some emails and some documents. What we determined was the best first step was to solicit and hopefully secure some funding. So we're recognizing that this project is bigger than something we could handle internally, whether it be the breadth and depth of information we're looking for, the staff time, all of the above. So we have thought, generally speaking, about the scope of work and the sorts of pieces that we'll be looking at. But we're going to, in some senses, table it until we learn if we have funding to support the project moving forward. So we have submitted the application for the CPC to fund a consultant to update the plan. We are hoping to be awarded the funding. I have a presentation at CPC on the 19th, so next week or early the week after, where I'll present our case and review our application. Awards are, I believe, announced later this fall, and then they have to be approved at town meeting. So the time period that we're really looking at before we could engage with a consultant, if awarded the funds, would be the start of FY23, so July. So we have the opportunity to, again, continue to work in the background on the scope of work to help prepare for the directives that we would give to a consultant and the supports that we're looking for. But really getting and acquiring that funding is step one. So we're optimistic that we will get the funding. The committee did fund the consultant for the last project, which was, again, 2014, it was published. And we've added a lot of concepts to this plan. While we recognize the value of the old plan, we're really seeing an opportunity to better attach some price tags to projects that will help the town and different departments make some decisions on capital projects and steps forward. We're also thinking that there will be more value in a short, long-term sort of concept instead of really putting a do this within 2 years, do this within 5 years, do this within 15 years, you know, to allow for some reasonable flexibility of completing some of these tasks. But they've both been, Peter and Paul have been excellent, you know, with the feedback they've provided. And I think we'll have a really strong starting point if we are awarded the funding. So that's just a brief update on the sorts of discussions that we've been having. And with that, one of the things I was hoping to do tonight was have the commission review and approve the letter of support that we can submit to the CPC for our application. I have also reached out to the Natural Resources Commission and the Public Works Commission, and we are on their agendas for their next meeting as well, for them to submit a letter of support, which would be great to have 3 different departments advocating for the value of a document like this. And it really does come quite timely with the Envision Concord charge, you know, and recognizing how we need to better identify and maintain, you know, our recreational assets. So I'm going to, Casey, if you're fine with it, I'll share my screen and we can look at the letter that you wrote. See here. Here. Oops, sorry, guys. Okay, here it is. Can you all see that? So this is the letter that I sent to you via email. Casey wrote this letter up. The only thing I've adjusted on it is the date. I'm hoping that it gets approved tonight, but welcome any. I didn't get any feedback via email, but if anybody has any, now would be the time to share it. Take a second to read it.
And I think maybe the only thing that maybe we want to add is just that this securing this funding to do the recreation facility strategic plan is in line with the goals laid out in Envision Concord. And so it's furthering that initiative. Do you want me to create a sentence?
Yeah, go ahead and say that one more time and I'll type it out fast.
Let me just read. So, you know, not to be artistic, but just sort of get the job done. You could say further, comma, securing the funding for a qualified consulting firm to update the town's recreation facility strategic plan, or we can say just, you know, updating it. Either coincides with the townwide efforts within the 2018 Envision Concord strategic plan. Coincides, or maybe a better word, like, you know, because coincide may make it seem duplicative, but like, I don't want to sound cheesy, but like dovetails with it, like
Yeah,
helps complements and furthers. Again, no artistry and absolutely no pride in authorship. So
For this grant funding for a qualifying consulting firm to update the town's and complements and furthers the town's efforts as outlined
Yeah.
within the 2018 Envision Concord Long Range Plan. How does that read? Further securing the funding for a qualified consulting firm to update the town's recreation facilities strategic plan, complements of the town's efforts as outlined.
Move the word further in there twice.
Yeah, I was thinking
Maybe you started off with like additionally or
moreover.
Moreover, nice choice, Jen. Moreover, securing the funding for a qualified consulting firm. Look good to you guys?
Yeah, I think it looks great. Well done.
Okay.
would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
Sure. I, Jen Lutz, would like to make a motion to approve this letter of support to the CPC.
Seconded. We'll do a roll call. Casey Atkins, yes.
Jim Howard, yes.
Jen Lutz, yes.
Great. Thank you all. Casey, I will turn this into a PDF and then I can email it to the CPC, but I'll CC you
Great.
as the chair. I'll do that
Okay.
tomorrow morning. Thank you, guys.
All right, 2021 facility and field use application fee approval.
Okay, so jumping right into this, so the recreation department rents, we'll start with the indoor space. So we do rent some indoor space primarily at the Hunt Recreation Center. We often have requests to use the gym, of course, gyms are hot commodities. But we also rent out our multi-purpose room and our conference room, as well as the small 3/4 size gymnasium at the Ripley School. We've had this sort of document in place for a couple of years now, but it's time, I think, to revisit the fees associated with rentals and the sorts of groups in the tiers. I have them written as with how we determine who gets charged. I see a lot of groups requesting space, Boys and Girl Scouts, for instance, and we've typically given the space to those groups for free. And then, there will be nonprofit groups that will reach out and we give it to them for free. And not that that's the wrong thing to do. I think that we want to continue with that, but I think we need to do a better job kind of defining who pays and who doesn't. And I think having the Recreation Commission annually review this sort of document would be really helpful. One, to have your support, but also to make sure that everybody's aware of the structure and the thought process behind it. So what this document shows here, again, I did some research. I looked at a lot of other neighboring communities in Massachusetts and New England and looked at their fee structures and how they kind of break down these groups and the tiers. And this is what I've come up with, and it's pretty standard across the industry.
And I'm sorry, I still see the letter. Is that what you're intending to show?
I
Okay.
was just about to say, if you don't mind putting the document up, that would be great. Sorry. It's no fun being the Zoom moderator.
No, it's not. It was up. Let's see. You'd think I'd be better at this point in time with how many.
There's no judgment for you.
Bless you. Facility rental. Now can you see it? Okay, great.
Yes.
So I scrolled to the page with the fee schedules, and that's really where I think your feedback would be valued. So I think it's important to make sure people understand that town boards and commissions, of course, can use our town spaces for free. There's some larger, more well-known commissions like ours and some of the other departments. And then there's smaller commissions like an art commission or over 60 group. Like there's a bunch of random groups in town that you might not know about. And I want to make sure that those groups know if they are truly a town elected commission, they're welcome to use our spaces. What's been a little wishy-washy over the years is groups seeing themselves as a town commission, just because of the energy that they're putting into it and the value that they see their group, putting forth, but they're not actually a formal town commission. So I do want to kind of spell out in here what those groups are and who we're trying to target in this area. And include, I think I'd like to include, if you guys all agree, specifically stating Boy and Girl Scout groups. So outside of, the Minutemen drum group and the Concord over 60 group, the other big consistent rentals that we provide are to the local Boy Scout and Girl Scout troops. And I think they should fall into that tier 1 for free to come in. But I don't know if that opens the door, why is this non-town sponsored group getting it for free versus, I don't know, another nonprofit in town that isn't a Boy or Girl Scout. So if you want to just take a second and kind of look at who's in these categories and let me know what you think. Tried to spell out again in tier 3 and tier 4 the difference between a Concord based nonprofit and then a non-Concord based nonprofit. And in talking with the deputy town manager, we do think that we need to better spell out that Concord private schools would fall into that category. So there's certainly, a large aspect of reciprocity with the private schools. We've used their gyms before, they've used our gyms, but everybody's looking for gym space right now, and it comes at kind of a high price tag. So Amrith has his hand raised. So Amrith, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, just a request, Anna, would you send me the latest version of this doc? The one which I got in email doesn't have the change bars, and I was going to include it in my notes to the FinCom. So
Sure.
thank you.
Yes.
And a quick question, what about Council on Aging?
So they would be a
Town-based?
oh yeah, it should say departments up here. It should say town of Concord departments. They typically use their own space, so we don't see a lot of requests for them to come to our space, but I would of course welcome any town department to use our rooms.
Okay.
Anna, when was this last updated? What year? Like, do these dollar signs reflect when it was last updated? What year was that?
So I created this document with Ryan Kane when we started in 2016.
Okay. So
And it definitely has not been updated since then. And I don't believe it was approved or brought to the commission even at that point. There was nothing in place. So these would be all brand new. The price tags though, it's always been $50 an hour for the Hunt Gym. So that tier 2 line is what the prices have always been, but they've been the same for everybody, whether you're Concord based or not.
Okay. Just a quick question, like introducing the whole COVID world and everything. I'm just wondering if these prices needs to go up a little bit more, if there's like extra cleaning that needs to get done after you rent them. That's extra money that the recreation uses to clean. Just curious.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Those are the sorts of things I want to try and analyze. We do have a full-time custodian who is there from 3 to 11 p.m. Monday through Friday. So he's typically there anyways when a group might come in to do, a committee meeting like ours. So I don't see a need, to have a custodial fee necessarily associated with these right off the bat. But we did at the bottom, I think I added, maybe not, like if it's a weekend event and it's going to create a huge mess on a winter day and the gym floor is going to have to get mopped afterwards. Oh yeah, there's the column, custodial fees. I would like the option to add a custodial fee to a rental, but I don't think it needs to be a blanket, addition for every rental.
Okay, great.
The other piece, there's a lot of Concord-based youth sports programs, and I'm finding a lot more Concord adult sports programs as well. In some neighboring communities I've seen, they've actually had their rec commissions spell out approved groups that would fit into this category to make it clear to people that it's, you know, for us, Concord Carlisle Youth Lacrosse, Concord Carlisle Youth Soccer, Concord Carlisle Youth Basketball, Baseball, Football. So blatantly spelling that out. So, you know, a group couldn't come and say, well, we're a Concord-based youth sports program, and that's all this tier requires. So, you know, why do we have to pay at a different rate? So that's something that we also, you know, could consider. There's a couple easy ones, again, like the classic youth lacrosse, soccer, baseball, basketball, football. But that's something, if the commission thinks that'd be valuable and would like to review that annually, we could do that as well.
Is that a problem? Do you get a lot of other, because you have underneath that tier 3, looks like they've got the same hourly rates, and they are like for nonprofit type of organization.
Right. So for instance, one of the private schools has reached out to use the gym for their sports teams. So they technically could fall under tier 2 as a Concord-based youth sports group, or they could fall under tier 4 where they are a for-profit organization. So naturally they would want to advocate to be considered a tier 2, which is why we either include on the way bottom there, you know, that Concord public school or private schools are tier 4, or trying to find and spell out the user groups that we specifically are approving to fall under tier 2.
Yeah,
There
I
are
think,
some other like flag football organizations that are based in Concord. So, you know, when they like to see themselves as a residence-based group, even though they pull kids from the whole Metro West region. So again, they could see themselves as tier 2 or tier 4, depending on how we define it.
yeah, I think spelling out those groups makes sense for tier 2. You can always add in, but if you don't call them out, then you could have a lot of those questionable organizations wanting to get the lower price.
Mm-hmm.
Do the tiers signify priority in terms of who gets access to the gym?
Yeah. Yes. So above, and this has been the same since 2016 as well, this leveling. But yes, this is how we look at it and make sure that priority comes first, the Concord Rec programs. With that, I don't book things more than 6 months out. So our programmers have time to figure out what they're doing. CCHS, they'll come down and use some of our spaces, and then town youth sports, town adult sports, and other.
So quick question for number 2, would it make sense to say Concord Public Schools and Concord Carlisle High School?
Yeah.
And then just to be mindful of what relationships and sort of reciprocity already exists with some of the private schools, to not, do we use any of their gym space currently for our programming?
Not currently. We're looking to go back to Concord Academy this year, and I believe all we've paid them is like a custodial fee every year. So yes and no. So we pay them a small amount, but it's not, you know, a formal rental fee, versus Fenn or Neshoba Brooks. We don't use those facilities, and they've reached out for space. So again, like, if it's all relative when you think of the wear and tear put on the floor, and once we get to the other document, the fields, you know, the more users we bring over, the more frequently we'll need to be maintaining. And certainly, you know, an extra 30 kids a couple times a month isn't going to make or break anything. But if we're going to update the document, I want to be prepared for larger influx and more requests, which we're seeing, because a lot of places are still closed to COVID. And, you know, space is tight, as we know. And no other community that I've reached out to even allows those youth sport groups like youth basketball to use their gym space for free. They all charge, even the local town youth sports group.
Do you mind scrolling back up so we can take a look at the tiers again? Because I think it's helpful to know what the best practices are or common practices, because I'm sure there's some reasoning behind it.
Yep. So like I said, and I could find the town names, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I was surprised actually to hear that all the other communities that I talked to do charge those youth sports groups for indoor space. And I understand it. You know, we're right now looking at rentals with CCYB, and they're going to take, 10 hours a week at least of primetime gym space, which is great for them. They need the space. But again, that's wear and tear on the floor. That's extra cleaning during the shift of the custodian. It's having a site supervisor available at the front desk to help with the management and things like that. So it does make sense to be charging those groups for the indoor space. It's very limited, in terms of what's available.
So it sounds like it makes sense for the private schools to be charged and to be put in a tier that reflects where they are on the priority list.
Tier 4.
Yeah. My question is, with including the Boy and Girl Scouts in tier 1 rather than like a tier 2, that you may be opening yourself up to a little bit more
Requesting.
Yeah, because it's a little inconsistent.
Yep. And, not that these groups have done this to us, but we, as a lot of things, if it's free, there's less commitment to attend than if there's a small fee associated. So on the nights where we have a rental booked, I make sure that we're paying somebody to be at the front desk so we can help get them checked in, make sure it runs smooth for them. And then they don't show. I've just paid somebody to be at the front desk and the group doesn't show. So again, I think you can look at it in that perspective too. And again, not that I have any complaints on Boy or Girl Scouts specifically, but just knowing historically with other places that I've worked and done rentals and things like that, putting a small price tag to it helps people really think through their rental requests, commit to their rental requests, and therefore we as an organization and facility can be prepared and do that. So I guess I'd leave that up to the other commission members, your opinions of, where a Boy and Girl Scout sort of group should fall.
Yeah, I think I agree. I don't really see anything that separates a Boy Girl Scout group from a sports group. I mean, they're youth programs in general. So, I'm comfortable bumping them up to tier 2. So it's consistent.
Yeah, I kind of agree. And I understand your reasoning, but that's not shown in this table here. That's why a lot of people would probably ask, why is that there?
The other piece too, when you think of the commitment from the youth sports groups. So we do see a lot of financial support from youth baseball and youth soccer for field maintenance and supplies and things like that. So they pay some in different capacities to use the fields. Indoor space, no, that's more a general fund through the town. So again, associating a fee to an indoor space for these youth sports groups versus the outdoor spaces where their funds typically do, chip in to maintain. That's the other justification behind fees with indoor rentals for these sorts of groups, the CCYL, CCYS.
They previously weren't charged. Sorry if I'm.
Correct.
And it's a nominal fee.
Yeah. Yes.
So I would keep those groups sort of together in that tier 2.
Okay.
And I mean, if there is a financial hardship, I'm sure that there's a conversation and way to address it.
Let's see. includes and town sports groups.
So Concord-based Girl and Boy Scouts, they've seen this table before? So they knew they were initially in tier 1, or they weren't aware?
There was no tier before.
Oh,
So the-
okay.
This would be new. Everybody just got it for free. Everything was free.
I see. Oh, then it definitely makes sense to go to tier 2. If they, yeah, okay.
And again, I don't, like Casey said, if they're like, Anna, I really, our little Daisy troop just needs a space and we got booted from the library because something else is going on. Can we please use it? We don't have any fundraising done yet this year. Of course, we'll be team players and make sure that people, can tell us if something's going on. I don't want to seem, like we're trying to be exclusive and not have anybody come use our space, but hopefully this will just, again, help define how we're managing and maintaining the facilities better. Let's see, the tier 3. That would be for like all other nonprofit groups in town. And there's so many nonprofits that might need meeting space or practice space. So that just looks at those guys, and certainly want to support some kind of lower rate for a nonprofit versus a for-profit, which is why I just have the same prices as these Concord-based sports groups as we do for the Concord-based nonprofits. And then tier 4 is everybody else pretty much. And I will add something down here about something along those lines. Again, we definitely don't need a blanket custodial fee, but a winter dance, in the gym takes a lot more cleaning and maintaining than a small group in the conference room. So any other questions on the tiers or any other feedback on the tiers? Good.
No, I think this is helpful. Thank you, Anna.
Just a quick question about timing. Is there going to be like an announcement and then this will go into effect in the future, or is this kind of an immediate thing that you're thinking of?
Sure. I guess I'd like some feedback on that too. So I don't want to blindside anybody tomorrow, with a fee. So maybe we pick a November one or a December one or something along those lines, and I can slowly start to make sure people are aware of that. Some of the, common requesters.
Yeah, I would say we're in like fall season for sports now. So maybe whenever that would end would be a good time to introduce it. Or to us say it'll be in effect at this point.
Yep.
Why not make it in effect the 1st of January, 2022?
My only hesitation on that would be,
Basketball.
it's all,
Yeah.
people are booking now for those winter sports.
So winter sports, anything, winter related, this would be the fee associated with it. And it could probably, don't they go through the website?
They can access the form through the website. Yeah. And then they email it to me directly. Would you all be comfortable saying for rentals that begin, they could submit it now or they could submit it in a couple of weeks. But if we, let's see. Like for rentals that take place after November 1st,
Yeah,
something like that.
good.
Everyone's doing kind of like preseason planning and things like that. So effective for.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm trying to think of, like everyone said, basketball. So I know basketball is going to start in January, but they're communicating to parents now to sign up and they set their rates already. So will this affect like that group? Whereas they've already communicated rates and they may have to increase the rates type of thing. Should we give them more time?
CCYB, they rented space from us last year during COVID because the school gyms and stuff were a little harder to get in. So they're in communication with us to rent again this year, and they're aware of fees that would be associated. So that's the biggest local group that I would want to make sure has a good heads up. Otherwise, it's rentals that kind of come in intermittently. So again, I've had 2 of the 4 private schools reach out in the last week for gym space. And they've never reached out for this need before, more like consistent practice space, So the only consistent group that I'd want to give a good heads up to would be CCYB.
Okay.
And they have that heads up.
Yeah.
So they incorporated it.
Yep.
Already into their fees and planning for this season.
Yep. And if you look at what these fees are compared to like a private facility, like the sports place in Acton, this is like pocket change for what they're used to renting. So I think they're happy to obviously stay local and have the kids be playing locally. And it's far more cost effective than some of the fancier, more formal rental facilities. And those groups, they don't have a gym space. So they're always renting if they're not at one of the public schools. And the program's just growing so much, they need more space. So they've always been prepared to do rentals from my understanding, whether it's from us or another group, that's just been who's been able to give them space. So we'd love to have those youth sports groups stay with us and stay local.
How does it work? So yeah, I'm kind of new to this whole thing. So how does it work with the schools? Do the schools charge them, or is it free?
I doubt that the schools charge. I don't know off the top of my head. And I don't know what the rules are looking like this year for, groups like this. We, of course, are running some programs at the elementary schools, but group sizes are limited. The schools, helping to define some of those precautions. So I don't know directly how that's going to affect these winter sports groups quite yet. It's a good question, Jim.
Okay.
So as long as Concord Carlisle Youth Basketball that you've been in touch with them directly, they're aware, and it's not going to totally upend everything, which it sounds like you've already covered that with them, then I think we could agree that like anything with a start date past November 1 will be subject to this tiering system and the fee system.
And I can put a news flash out on our website too, so it pops up on the front so people see it before they even get to the link. But I think it's reasonable if you all think it's reasonable, and I think this time of year would be a good one to review these annually. So right when the fall sports are ending and people are starting to book for indoor winter sports, I think this would be a perfect time of year to annually look at this, review this, look at the quantity of rentals we had years prior, hours of usage, things like that. So I'd propose that we talk about this annually and see how it's working out.
To Jim's point in it, it might, especially with the indoor stuff, be better to review it in June at our June meeting, just to give, if any changes are going to be made, give a little bit more heads up. Now,
Okay.
That being said, I know you deal with these folks all the time and you understand the nuance better than I do, but I think just to reflect what Jim was saying about, their fees are set, things are set, they're recruiting people in, they're making plans at this point. It might be a little later in the game.
Yeah, great point, actually.
No pun intended.
Yeah. And when we get to the outdoor facilities, we'll let's talk about the date for that one. Maybe these are actually, 2 different meetings, because the bulk of outdoor fields is summer and fall, versus the indoor stuff is this. So no, I think that makes total sense. At June meetings annually, we review the indoor facility rental data, rates, and feedback. That's when we can discuss tiers. For now, we'll just leave these youth sport groups listed, and include the Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, and private schools under tier 4. How's that look for everybody? Good plan.
Looks good.
Casey, can you guys approve this document with a roll call? And on the bottom of this document in the footer, I'll put approved by rec commission.
Okay, motion to approve this document and the fee schedule.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call, Casey Atkins, yes. Jen Letts,
Jen List, yes.
Jim Howard.
Jim Howard, yes.
All right,
Great, thank you guys. Save this one and pull up the outdoor fields quickly. New share. Okay. Can you see that one? It says field, top of it there. Okay. So this document looks at the rentals for the outdoor field spaces that the recreation department manages, which include all facilities at Emerson Park, all facilities at Rideout Park, the upper two Doug White turf fields after 6 o'clock p.m. and the upper grass field at the high school after 6 o'clock p.m. And on weekends, I'm sorry. So
number 2 again, can you put Concord Public Schools and Concord Carlisle High School programs? Thanks, sorry.
Yep. So same sort of priority of scheduling. I do seasonal meetings with the youth sports groups to talk out shared schedules and look at usage hours. So that's been a smooth process. And then I wanted it to kind of look and feel the same, but I felt it important on this document to define on one space all of the facilities and what they are. So I worked hard to create maps of all the facilities that look at the field options, the field sizes, those fields that do or do not overlap and therefore take another field offline. So this is what this chart is showing, just the field, the sport type and the field locations and what's available. Scroll down, whether it has lights or not. So Doug White fields are the only ones that have lights. And then the tier structure will look similar to you. So again, the biggest difference between what we just reviewed and this document is that we have allowed those Concord youth sports groups to use the fields for free. And again, they contribute quite a bit to the fields, whether it's the nets, whether it's the batting cages or the backstops. So it's a different feel, I think, on a field versus the indoor facilities with these youth sports. So I would advocate that they stay free, but they do pay for the light fees if they're on Doug White. And that's been the case for years. Those fees are set by the finance department of the public schools. So that's not something we have to worry about annually. They set those fees and communicate that to us, and then they do the billing as well, which is great. So so that's standard, that we can't change, but otherwise, let's go down a little farther. Again, where do Boy and Girl Scouts lie on this? The tier 2 on this one is a little interesting. And again, I adopted field scheduling and these things have been in place for a while. So there are some adult sports groups that don't charge fees to their users, but do carry liability insurance, who have historically used the fields for free. I'm not necessarily saying I agree with that or that I disagree with that, but they're certainly different than the youth sports groups in terms of supporting the field usage. So I have them on tier 2 with no charge because that's what they're used to. But would love to hear some thoughts on that as well. I don't know the history and why that is, but it's what it is right now. And there's, let's see, I've had between 2 and 4 adult soccer programs primarily use some space, and one group consistently uses the Doug White Fields on weekends, both Doug White Fields on the weekends for a couple of hours at a time. And those fields are at a point where we're starting to talk about repair and replacement as well. So now is the time to think about those adult sports groups and how they can or don't need to contribute.
Do we know if other towns charge those types of groups?
I know that they charge for field space. I don't know if other towns have groups like this adult sport group that have been kind of grandfathered in. I can certainly reach out to the rec directors group that I have and see if anybody else has a team like this. But these guys get pretty good prime time. And again, they're super grateful, really easy to work with, great guys. But they do get some prime time, you know, at the Doug White Fields for free.
But they're not blocking time from the other priority groups, right? They just happen to, or do they?
I mean, they've historically had that 9 to 11 a.m. slot. Would youth soccer or youth lacrosse take it? Absolutely, especially in a season like this where Emerson Park has been closed for almost the entire soccer season. Youth sports are not complaining about this group at all. Let me be clear on this recorded meeting. You know, everybody gets along and plays well in the sandbox, and nobody is complaining about this at all. It's just something that I think we should, again, be aware of and either vote it and I'll know it and I don't have to worry about it anymore, or consider a change.
And it probably makes sense for you to reach out to your other network of rec directors to see how they approach similar situations in their town. And then, you know, I do think bringing them into a tier 2 with some type of charge, but having a conversation with them and giving fair warning to those groups would be helpful if we go that way.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I think absolutely. I definitely would want to have a conversation with these guys. They've been playing for years. You know, I don't want to put any team out because they don't charge fees and don't have a way to pay, but we're looking at a very expensive renovation of these fields and the usage hours, you know, something to consider. So I can reach out to the rec directors group and report back at the next meeting on that sort of feedback if they have free adult sports groups that don't get charged. That's specifically this group that I'm referring to. If the payers play, then it would be a different situation.
And then with Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, how frequently are they using the fields? I feel like the indoor space is more what they would pursue.
Definitely, the indoor space is more. I do have a group this past weekend. Oddly, I had a Boy Scout group and a Girl Scout group request space. One for a rocket launch on one of the fields and another to set up like a fundraising table for a bake sale for a hurricane relief or something like that. So
like, the pavilion at Rideout.
We don't book the pavilion at Rideout. We don't have a system for which we've done that. It's not to say that we couldn't start doing that, but it's kind of the
like a public space. It's just
yeah.
No, I appreciate that. I'm just thinking that might be more useful for Boy Scout, Girl Scouts if they're doing like outdoor meetings and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if we want to be consistent. So if we're being consistent, then they're lumped in with youth sports, so they would be in tier 1. So we'll keep them in tier 1, and you're going to talk to the other rec directors that you know about adult sports and see what they do, see if there's sort of a common practice, best practice there. And then we can discuss at the next meeting what makes sense to move forward, but it would certainly be in collaboration and conversation with these folks.
The other thing I'd like to consider is these new tier 5 and tier 6 for tournaments. So, not that Concord is being overrun by tournaments and that it would be a bad thing if we were, it brings a lot of tourism and economic vitality to the communities that it's in. But it does take a little more manpower from the town. So most typically the youth sports groups, take care of the raking out of the baseball fields or, getting the scoreboards turned on, things like that. But it does potentially require public works or facilities to go and clean the bathrooms at the parks more frequently, empty the trash, things like that. So something I think we should consider. And again, like if we're doing this, prepare for those sorts of questions or opportunities now. We did have a tournament this summer facilitated by youth baseball. It was I believe it was a Babe Ruth tournament. They ended up just using the Ripley School complex, but they were initially planning on Ride Out and Ripley. So again, it removes all of their users from those spaces for the weekends and requires a little more dependency on the town to keep the facilities up when you have a couple hundred kids and their families coming and going. So those prices that I have listed here are as a result of some research from other neighboring communities and what they're charging on fields. A lot of places try and do like a per player price, and I think that's just too complicated for where we're at. So I'm looking more at, a basic per field per day sort of schedule, with it being a Concord-based group versus a non-Concord based sports group, which we'd be open to renting to non-Concord based groups if the availability was there. So just differentiating between, the benefit of being a resident based group versus not. And of course the lights on Doug White. Any thoughts on that sort of tournament schedule? There's other places, that do like an hourly rate for tournaments as well. But I just think the cleanest, easiest, most straightforward would be the per field per day concept. And it would just be this fee for those groups. So they wouldn't then, have any of these above fees. It would just be the tournament schedule fee.
I think that's.
Yeah, the only thing, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think it looks good. And if it turns out you need more like an hourly rate for the day, you could always change that in the next iteration.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is they may ask for half-day rates. I don't know if we want to list those
Good
or
point.
just half the full day or.
Yeah, and I could spell out, a full day is 8 hours, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. or whatever, and a half day is either 8 to 12, 12 to 4, something like that. Okay, I can do that.
Looks good to me.
Okay.
Are there tournaments held now in Concord?
I'm sorry?
Are there tournaments now in Concord that happen like annually?
So again, yeah, I just adopted this in February, and I've only had one tournament thus far. It was with youth baseball. They hosted a nice Babe Ruth tournament in July at those fields. So again, I haven't had an influx of tournament requests, but I'd like to be prepared in case we do get some. What town was it? A neighboring town reached out because their public works is so impressed with Concord youth fields. They wanted to be connected with public works or whoever was overseeing the maintenance. So Concord's fields and facilities are definitely seen as, cream of the crop, which naturally could attract some tournament groups and sports groups like that to want to come and use our space, which we're not opposed to at all. We just want to be prepared and have a good plan in place. And I've already talked some with public works about, more discussions on what would this include. So that would be the next thing I'd want to bring to you guys as well. So for $125 per field, what are we going to include on that? And that's bigger than just me, because we're so dependent on public works and facilities. So, you know, they're on board with coming up with a formalized plan like this as well. So, and thinking of when we might look at this document. So, I would propose that we would look at the outdoor field schedule in, we don't usually do September, so I guess October or August. We book a lot of the fields, of course, you know, through the spring and the summer and the early fall. So this would be the time of year where things are kind of winding down. Everybody's booked. They know they have their rentals done for that season. So it'd be a good time to reflect on that and get prepared for it to be published again, with discussions of these groups usually starting in January, February-ish, you know, getting their seasons panned out. So I'd propose August or October, since we don't meet in September.
Do we not meet in September? Usually it's August that we skip, not
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I think so. So it's September maybe is the nice little sweet spot between the two.
September would be perfect. Yes. If that makes sense to you guys as well. So we would do the indoor review in June and then the outdoor review in September annually with a vote to approve any new policies, fees, things like that.
Sounds good to me. Do you need a motion on that or?
Let's hold for now, since I have a little research to do on a couple of these pieces, and hopefully at the next meeting, we could get this one finalized.
Okay.
Just have one more request on this document, and only because I went through it a couple weeks ago with my son's birthday. For the ride out pavilion, I don't know if it would be easier or be easy to put a line item on this document that you have on the screen that says that there are no rentals or no reservations for the pavilion, that it's just first come, first serve. That way it's kind of out there so people can see it.
Sure. Yep. That makes total sense. Let me find a good place to put that, Jim, and I'll redline it. And there's probably some other facilities that I should also add in. You know, some people even ask about reserving the playground for like a birthday party, things like that. So let me think of a sentence or two to define what is not rentable.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks, you guys. Cruising through here now. So department updates. Andy, do you want to kick that off?
Sounds good. So not sure if many of you get the BD newsletter, but it just came out, I believe yesterday. And with it, we do a monthly newsletter that just sort of highlights programming and staffing and special events, and hopefully a couple different things related to fitness or swimming. This last newsletter, let me know if you would like to get it, but you can also just look at our website. We've got all our additions throughout the years posted there, at least for the last 3 years. This last newsletter did highlight a new staff member, so we're excited that our aquatics program manager, Anne Boudreau, started Monday of last week. With it, you know, she's been with the Concord town and White Pond for the last 3 years. So excited that we've got someone with a lot of background experience with us, but also she was a competitive swimmer in her days, and aquatics manager at facilities in the area, currently still a high school coach with swimming and diving. So, you know, just, you know, thrilled to have her getting up to speed this past week, and this week is going to really take charge of our lifeguarding, our programming, and be able to start planning to make a good impression on all that we do in the summertime as well. So a welcome to her as far as being part of our team, and with it, couldn't be more pleased as we progress and sort of get her acclimated. Couple other things just on our front, we did start programming September 13th. We're pretty vibrant. Just to run down a few in case any of them jump out as far as interesting to you. We've got 4 master's programs, which are swimming practices for adults. We've got our high school group in the door doing preseason. We've expanded Otters in regards to there's 3 groups sort of coming through the door with shorter sessions, but they did start this week or the 27th, and they go for 6 days a week right into March. We've got 19 water fitness classes, 2 adaptive aquatics classes, 2 adult swimming classes, 12 private swim lessons, 26 group swim lessons, 3/4 rentals. One is Laura Diamond, a physical therapist who works with our therapy pool and water groups and whatnot. And soon Concord High School will be there with our team after Thanksgiving, but currently we have their lifeguarding group in the door. So a busy pool deck, busy activity, which is great for everyone to see. We've got it posted as far as a schedule online so members can see where those openings are, where those gaps are, so they can get in and get their time as well. On the group fitness side, we've got 11 classes happening in indoor spaces. We've got 4 online classes happening. Those again started the week of September 13th. Just got through a bloodmobile, which was connected to the town for years and well supported again this year. Nice weather helped. We had Discover Scuba class September 11th, 12th with 14 participants. So that was a good little start to that, and we hope to continue. Last on the special events schedule is the Sleepy Hollow 5K and Fun Run. We're up to 59 participants. So with it growing, we still got some weeks to go until we get to October 30th, that Saturday morning, to have the event. But first time up at the BD Center has been really successful down at the Hunt space, getting some good support from Marty Hutchinson and Hunt to TJ Liakis up here at the BD Center. So with it gearing that up, it'll be a lot of good exposure, a fun event for people to get outside and just experience some good social fitness, we'll call it. We'll get some t-shirts out the door. So a good little piece for us that's new and different, and that's trying to be our theme, is that we create some different things that people can gravitate towards and make BD sort of more of their routine. So any questions on some of that? I know it's a bit of everything, but it's a bit of off and running as well this fall.
The other pieces I just want to add to the BD Center report, and I'll touch briefly on them for the recreation revolving, is those capital improvement project documents that I sent over to you. Those documents, Andy and I went through with a fine-tooth comb and put proposals together for funding requests for the years of FY 23 through 27. Most soon would be the FY 23 request, which is about $123,000 worth of capital projects that are necessary to happen at the BD Center. So that there was one document that I sent you. It was an Excel chart that spelled out the project totals by project type, but then also by fiscal year. So just want to make sure everybody saw that and saw what we requested. I see Amrith is on here tonight, so that document, perhaps during his liaison update, he could tell us, the next steps in the FinCom reviewing those sorts of documents. But just wanted to make sure everybody saw that in their email, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Thanks, Andy. Did you have anything else?
No, that covers it.
Okay. For the revolving account side of the operation, to the Hunt Recreation Center, we also welcomed a new full-time staff person. Maggie Johnstone started at our front desk as our full-time recreation clerk 2 weeks ago. She comes to us with a background in graphic design and marketing, and is already an expert in our software and website and all things social media. So she's going to be a huge asset for us, quick learner, and total team player. So we're really excited to have that position filled. And we'll be welcoming an assistant director, Adam Lapointe, on November 1st. So we are slowly but surely filling all of those positions that we've worked hard to find the right candidates for, and we're excited to welcome these 3 full-time staff, between this month and next. So we will certainly have Adam on these calls moving forward once he starts. And if and when possible, we'll have Maggie and Ann Boudreau jump on to say hi as well. So just wanted to welcome them.
That's great news, Joanna.
Really great news. We're very excited to have a full house again. Other piece, just wanted to point out that the Recreation Commission Administrative Code that we had been working on for a couple of months was approved at the August Select Board meeting. So job well done to all of you helping to revise that. It is linked on our website under the Recreation Commission tab, so you can see the final version there. But I just wanted to bring that to full circle and let you all know that it was approved. Our winter brochure is in the works right now. It will be in mailboxes the first week of December, with registration dates beginning on December 8th. So watch for that to come. We decided to do just a single season brochure again instead of a dual season brochure, just recognizing that COVID is still among us and it certainly could put a kink in plans. So we didn't want to project programs too far out, not knowing what's going to happen. So just a single season brochure. It'll be the January through March programs. Let's see. We, like Andy mentioned, BD will be hosting our special events for the month of October. Month of November, we're going to be doing a turkey hunt in the parks. So there will be a turkey picture of a turkey on a stake with like a gift certificate. Marty Hutchinson will put those out in the parks the first Monday of each week. And whoever finds it brings it to the rec center and they get a turkey for their family. So that's kind of a fun, get out in our parks and see the nooks and crannies and win a turkey. So that'll be the month of November. And then December, we're hosting the town holiday parade and tree lighting. First of which meeting is this Friday. So we're starting to do the planning for that event again.
Nice to hear you'll be doing that again.
Yeah, we're excited. It's going to be the first Sunday of December. So mark your calendars. It always has a nice big crowd, so it should be exciting. And then one of the other pieces that we're working on is some small fundraising events to help replenish our financial assistance pot. So Marty Hutchinson ran our first event this month at Trails End Cafe. It was a dine out and 20% of the bill comes back to the scholarship fund. And we made about $500 that night. So it was really successful. Marty's going to look to do that, one a quarter, something along those lines, just to slowly put some funds back into that account so we can continue to support residents that need assistance to attend programs. So that was really exciting and good to see.
And great to have that sent out to the commissioners when those happen, because
Sure.
To the extent we can show up and be part of it, I think is helpful, and then sort of encourage others to come along too.
Sure, makes total sense. Yep. Let's see. So we will be doing our ski programs. We've had a lot of questions on the ski programs. Registration for elementary school skiing will open on October 12th, and registration for middle school ski will open on October 20th. So we're excited to finally have those programs in place. The mountains have been very accommodating, and we're excited to bring about 60 kids per site back out to the mountains. So that's coming up. Youth basketball, that registration is open right now for our clinics and leagues, and it will begin in November for the clinics, in the leagues in January. So we're hoping to see a strong return. We weren't able to run that program last year, so we're excited to bring it back and get some of our coaches back to work with the youth that aren't necessarily ready or interested in the travel field or the travel tournaments and things like that CCYB can offer. DJ Fimiani has done a really great job. He's our recreation supervisor, taking over the sports programs. He has an adult sport group in the gym 7 days a week now, which is excellent. So we're reaching more of our adult athletes in Concord with men's and women's basketball, pickleball, as well as volleyball. So that's been really great to see, to have those folks back in the building. White Pond memberships will open for registration on February 2nd for past members of this past season. And then February 16th for non-past pass holders. We'll be sure to over advertise that, sending out notices to members and things of that sort, but just wanted to give you the heads up on those dates as well, because those will be in our fall brochure, our winter brochure.
Can I just ask a question about White Pond? I know
Sure.
you're doing an experimental program to kind of reduce the algal blooms. How did that end up working, or?
It's not done, and
Okay.
there will be a lot more work involved. It's a pilot program that's taking place in the pond right now. There's no charge to the town for the pilot program. It's helping, with the patent of the product. But White Pond Advisory Committee has been very involved in, talking with the town and looking at the pond health and ways that we can make strides to improve it. And certainly there's no one answer, I think ultimately is what is very clear amidst those meetings. But the town, with some of the renovations that we're planning at the pond, will hope to remediate some of the issues, not at all of fixing, one fix sort of stop, but the wastewater or the rainwater holding tanks will be huge to have in place. And the switchback trail with new vegetation will help with the runoff. So no huge update on the pond health. I can just speak to some of those initiatives that are coming down the pipeline and assure you that the town is very committed, to doing what we can to help with the pond health and the future of the pond for the residents around it and that use it. Let's see. So last thing I'll say, just for the sake of time, for our school year programs, which is really exciting. So the government put out a stabilization program for childcare. They put out grants that any department could apply for if you ran a childcare program. Typically, Concord never qualifies for these sorts of grants or funding sources just because of our median income, but nobody is being turned down for this stabilization grant. So through the application process, we submitted for funding for all of our after-school sites, our preschool, our before school programs, and our early release programs. And we'll be awarded $161,000 to support those programs this year. The checks will come monthly, and there are certain stipulations on what you can use it towards, which a lot of it is personnel based, which we couldn't agree with more. It still is really challenging to find enough staff that want to work in these programs. So more to come on that with the plans that we'll actually make to disseminate those funds, but that will be a huge, huge benefit to the program this year, and help offset a significant chunk of our personnel expenses that we had planned for this year. So that's really exciting for us.
Great. That's a huge win. Maybe something that, to post about or something to that effect. I mean, to the extent it's appropriate, but it's important that those funds are being used and that they're being used in a way that really makes a big impact.
Yes, we'll definitely be doing some, notices and publications in the newspaper once we see that first check come in and actually hit the bank accounts, which should be this month. And as we work out those final details of how the funds will be used to support the programs, but huge, and job well done by Anita Hill, who pays attention to EEC and all these sorts of funding opportunities, and amidst the chaos at the start of the year, filled out the applications for us, and has followed through with it, and we're receiving that amount of money. So that is really exciting. More to come. That is what I have for the Hunt Rec Center. I guess just briefly, the renovations at Emerson Park are starting to wrap up. They're hoping by the end of October, everything will be done. They've poured the surface on the playground. It's going to take about 2 weeks to cure, and then the playground will reopen. And then they just need to install the water fountains and do some surface fixes, you know, with finalizing the small details in the park. But all the baseball fields are skinned. The new softball field is installed. They're putting sod down this week, so you'll see some snow fencing out there to protect the sod as it takes root. But not enough great things to say about Public Works and the job that they've done out there this year. And then very briefly, an update on the Giroux property, which we haven't talked about in a while. I haven't necessarily been directly involved in that project, so I get updates from the deputy town manager. But right now, they have just finished clearing out the dead and dying plant life. They trucked out about 6 semi trucks of vegetation to allow for the healthy vegetation and the non-invasive species to, you know, take root and really replenish. They're now shifting to some of the more conventional park-like pieces that are exciting, including the walkways and the open spaces and the spectator spaces, retention ponds, rain gardens, parking, things of that nature. They have finalized the schematics for the restroom and the pavilion. There'll be, you know, beautiful post and beam design with exposed wood. That'll be a nice natural look for that environment. And they plan to be pouring and setting the foundations for both of those structures this week, weather dependent, of course. And then it'll be a couple of weeks for those areas to cure, hopefully before the terribly cold freezing weather comes in. So they're making great progress over at Giroux. And the goal will remain to complete as much work as they can this fall before the snowfall, with the project right now being about 20% complete. So good progress over there, even though we don't talk about it too much or see it as frequently as we might in some of the other parks. So, and that is all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Should we move on to reports from liaisons? We already got Matt's report. Amrit, do you have anything you want to add from FinCom?
Yeah, nothing from FinCom. I was looking at the agenda, and there were a couple of things which I did want to ask about. There's a couple of requests for the basketball resurfacing and polycarbonate windows replacing. Did you already finish discussing that? I'm sorry, I got a little delayed with the meeting date change. I wasn't able to join at 7. Are you done discussing that, or did they not make it to the agenda?
We touched on them briefly. I had sent out the documents ahead of time and welcomed any questions on those pieces. So happy to answer any questions that you might have about those 2 requests.
Okay, I'll follow up with you offline. One of them is for 150 and the others for 20, and both of them are in the funding book already.
For this fiscal year, what do you say funding book?
Are they in the, so there's the big funding book, I don't know, 300 pages or whatever on the town's website, and I'm slowly working my way through page 4. Is this already part of your 2023 plan on that, or is this going to be in addition to?
These would be in addition to, these are projects that wouldn't be funded out of the revolving account. But we have in the past requested funds for the basketball or tennis court resurfacing at Emerson Park, and they haven't been approved, but the Hunt window replacement is brand new.
Okay, so I'll take that one back to the FinCom. The only other thing which I had was there's the spreadsheet here which shows your capital projects for 23 through 27. And the numbers which you have in there for 22 seem to total $40,000. Is that the entire amount which you're looking for?
No, that is, let me pull up that chart for everybody to see here. That is the documents for, oh, I'm sorry, for 22. Yes, that's what was already submitted. The documents that I recently submitted were only for funding years 23 through 27.
Okay.
So yes, 22 was already in the books. That's what was set and planned on, and Andy's working off of that 40,000 number. But for FY23, we've requested 123,000.
Okay. And the last question I had was, there's apparently a property on Main Street, a fairly large parcel, which is currently the town is looking at. This is the former, I don't know, Superfund site, which has been remediated. Is the rec department looking at doing anything on that location? Do you have any plans already? Have you talked about it?
Yeah, the person you definitely want to talk to is Paul Boehm, who's on the rec commission, but not here tonight. He's on CPC as well. Paul was on the committee that looked at opportunities for that site, and he's done a presentation for the Recreation Commission in the past, looking at potentials, including, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but the like recreation centers, like multi-use recreation, more of a community center than
Right.
what we have right now. So, so yes, we have talked with Paul and his committee and looked at their feedback that they've received, but we don't have, you know, any plans in place for, say, from the Recreation Department at this point in time.
Okay, cool. Those were all the things I had. Casey, I didn't know whether there was anything specific you were looking for from the FinCom, so I'm going to play the I'm new here card and say, if there is something, I'll get an answer for you after our next meeting, which I believe is in a couple of weeks.
No, I think this is perfect. And I think it's helpful just clarifying those numbers and getting your, you know, making sure that your understanding of what the rec budget looks like. So no, I think that really covers it. Thank you.
Not a problem. Thanks a lot. Sorry for being late today.
No
you're
worries.
And Amrit, I'm happy to have a phone call with you at some point in time if that's helpful to review all those documents.
Understood. I will send you a note, Anna.
Great.
So since Paul's not here, we don't have a CPC update. So it looks like that concludes our business. I realize, Anna, I know we had public comment like in the front and in the back previously, and I just moved my agenda. So, but if there's any public comment, please feel free to speak up. Otherwise, we can make a motion to close the meeting.
If we could set the next meeting before we
Yeah.
leave. Can you see? So Paul was able to send over the dates for the upcoming CPC meetings in the hopes that we could avoid the same nights. So if possible, I'm going to be going out on maternity leave in early December. So I'd love to fit in another meeting at the end of October here and then do another one in November. So if everybody is interested and able, I'd love to meet again at the end of this month. And Paul is unavailable on Tuesdays, so we'd have to look at another day of the week.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Could you all do a Wednesday or a Thursday that last week? Month, so that would be October 27th or 28th.
That works for me.
I do the 28th.
I was gonna say I could do the 27th. I guess I could do the 28th too. It might be a little late though.
Hold on one second, let me look. So he has meetings on October 5th, October 19th, and November 9th. So maybe we actually can do. Could we shift to a Thursday slot? I'm not sure why we would need to shift to a Thursday slot. It doesn't look like he has a meeting on Tuesday, October 26th. Could you all do Tuesday, October 26th? And I'll confirm with Paul that he's still open that night. Okay,
Yep.
let's do that.
Tuesday works for me.
Great.
Perfect. And it will be 7 p.m. virtual again. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Anna. I'd like to make a motion to close the meeting.
I just have one question before we close.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone's aware of what's going on with the middle school and preparing for the new middle school. There was a meeting that happened maybe a week or two ago that I listened to a portion of, and they were talking about what they're going to do with, I think it's the Peabody School and the land there. They're talking about selling it or maybe developing it. So I don't know if there is a role that the rec commission plays in that, or could play in that decision, or could maybe recommend for that committee to do with that land. Because if we can keep that land as a town, as a, rec commission, we could use that land, I would assume, for, recreational opportunities. So I don't know how our role plays into that, or if anyone's thought about that or saw that.
Yeah, so I don't have a hard and fast answer to that, Jim. I know, we have in the past discussed the opportunity of using even, the skeleton of that building for more recreation programming space. But I haven't seen the conversations go much further than that. It's certainly something I can talk with the deputy town manager about a little bit more. The youth sports groups do use the fields over there. We don't schedule them, but I know they're dependent on that extra space. So I hear what you're saying with opportunity. And I don't know if anybody could speak to more information that you have on what they might do with that space afterwards, but we can certainly follow up on that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Jen, were you in the midst of seconding the closing of the meeting?
I second the motion to close the meeting.
Roll call, Casey Atkins, yes. Jen Lutz,
Yes.
Jim Howard.
Yes.
Okay, thank you guys very much. Thank you, Anna.
All right, thank you guys. See you on the 26th.
Sounds good.
Great.
All right, bye.
Thank you.